Empathy and sympathy are two completely different things, although some people associate it to be the same thing because their differences are just that thin. Sympathy means to understand someone's feelings, but empathy? It goes much deeper than that. Sometimes we can get too carried away with our emotions, whether anger or joy, that we forget to look from someone else's perspective. With a little bit of this, the world can be a much better place to live in. With a little bit of this, we can understand one another better. And with a little bit of this, we can avoid unnecessary arguments in life. But what exactly is this thing? It can't possibly be shoes, right? Believe it or not, it is that simple. Shoes. To be more specific, it is empathy. It's a word that we have all heard at least once in our lives. But what does it really mean? Well, empathy and sympathy are two completely different things, although some people associate it to be the same thing because their differences are just that thin. Sympathy means to understand someone's feelings, but empathy? It goes much deeper than that. Imagine on a test that you worked so hard to study, and when you got your paper back, you're so disappointed because you got a low mark. And then your friend comes along, say, hey, look at this. And there's a big red circle that says 100. And would you be able to be truly happy for her? Would you be able to smile back at her genuinely? Would you be able to congratulate her? She's not bragging, she's just happy. And would there be a tiny sting in your heart, a tiny voice in your head that says, why can't that be me? Now, imagine if the roles were reversed. Your friend was the one who's crushed and you got full marks. And because you know what it feels like to get a bad grade, instead of showing her your paper, you comfort her. You take a tiny moment to pause, notice, and care for her. That is empathy. It's not just about understanding someone's feelings, but it's also about sharing your thoughts, understand the experience and the context, and treating them as if they were your own. This seemingly simple word can't be a hard thing to have, right? Well, I can't be more wrong because empathy or putting yourself in someone's shoes isn't an easy thing to have. You see, around last year, I was traveling with my parents and my grandparents. And for some context, I was staying in the same room as my grandma. And the night before, we got to the hotel quite late, so I was expecting to get a good, well-rested sleep. But instead of waking up because I was well-rested, I woke up because it was hot. The moment my eyes opened, it immediately darted to the AC, which I realized wasn't on. When I tried to turn it on using the remote, another thing I realized was that the electricity was cut because there was no cord at the holder. And then I realized that my grandma wasn't even in the room. And so naturally, I was panicking because I had no internet, which means losing the ability to be able to contact or text my parents. I was fuming at that time because imagine waking up in a room only to find the air conditioner is switched off and that you have no way to contact your parents. Fortunately, only after a few minutes, both my grandma and my mom came back into the room. But instead of them coming back into the room, and instead of me greeting them and saying good morning, the first thing I said was, "Why did Grandma take the key?" It was so hot. The air conditioner was switched off. And before my mom even had a chance to answer, I immediately ran back to bed. After a few moments, I calmed down a little, and that was when my mom approached me. She told me and explained that my grandma couldn't have possibly entered the room without a key because, well, she had no key and the person inside the room was sleeping. And I didn't realize that she was right. Only after thinking it over and over in my head that I did admit my mistake. After realizing, I immediately apologized, saying that, well, I didn't realize it. But with a little bit of understanding, I wouldn't have thrown a fit towards her. With a little bit of patience, I would have understood that she meant no harm. And with a little bit of empathy, I would have looked things through her eyes. From just a little bit of observation, we can see that emotions really affect our ability to show empathy. Because you see, there's two parts of the brain. One that controls our reflex, and the other one that controls what we can do. For example, moving our hands or walking around. But in a situation when we're angry, frustrated, our brain makes a priority. Our emotions become the priority. And in that situation, most of the times, we say and do things that we never meant. But most of them can be a sharp stab for someone's feelings. And other times, we can get too carried away with our emotions. Maybe it was when you got a good grade and you were too happy to realize that your friend was disappointed with hers. And that is exactly what happened to me. You see, I once got full marks on my science test. And I was over the moon because who wouldn't be after studying so hard? And that hard work finally paid off. I was really happy, but what I didn't realize was that my friend was disappointed with hers. She hadn't expected to score so low, but instead of encouraging her, instead of comforting her, instead of saying that it's okay, I was too happy to realize that when I was happy, she was mourning. From just a little bit of observation, I would have realized her disappointment. With a little bit of empathy, I could have encouraged her instead of leaving her disappointed in silence. And with a little bit of awareness, I could have remembered that someone else's bad day can exist next to a good one. Sometimes we can get too carried away with our emotions, whether anger or joy, that we forget to look from someone else's perspective. So empathy isn't just about understanding someone's pain, it's about noticing when they're in pain, even when you're happy, angry, or sad. So ladies and gentlemen, empathy isn't just a random word from the dictionary. It's a big word. It's an important one as well. It takes time and experience to develop it. But the destination, it is worth it. So next time when you're frustrated with someone's actions or when you're engaging with someone, remember to take a step back, take a deep breath, and look from someone else's perspective. Because with a little bit of empathy, the world can be a much better place to live in. Thank you.
SML1, more than just public speaking.